Hey everybody, welcome back to the fourth and final live stream, sponsored by Full Sail University and hosted by us, Rooster Teeth Animation. My name is Chris Kokinos, and I'm going to be taking you on this wonderful adventure, or at least wrapping up this wonderful adventure on the pipeline of animation. Today we're coming to you live from the Rooster Teeth studio, and we're being joined by the wonderful folks over at Full Sail University. Hi, friends.
How you doing?
So previously, we talked about kind of each step of the pipeline. We talked about previs, modeling, and animation, and now we're wrapping it all up with post-production. If you're interested in checking out the previous streams, in the description below, you can find those links and go back and watch them, see all the fun things we talked about, learn how to be an animator, or a modeler or rigger, or learn how to do viz post and maybe some sound or something.
All of it.
All the things all at once.
All of it at once.
I can talk all day. I should introduce my friends, but I should also say I am a Full Sail alumni. I graduated in 2008 from the Recording Arts program, and I am the head of audio here at Rooster Teeth Animation. How about y'all?
Hi, I'm Cole Gallion, and I am an editor, an animatic editor, animation editor for RT Animation.
I'm Ariel LaCroix, and I'm an assistant viz post supervisor.
I'm Amanda Gotera, and I was the assistant lead compositor on Genlock, and I'm a compositor on Ruby.
How about our friends over at Full Sail? I see you guys over there.
My name is Joe Brandibus. I am the department chair for pipeline and integration, and I'm also the art director for the compositing discipline in the portfolio classes.
All right, and I'm Dwayne Broughton, the associate course director for compositing fundamentals.
That's awesome.
And I also work in fine arts whenever they need me.
I feel like you guys always have like the coolest titles over at Full Sail. Like everybody has like just really cool titles in their name. So real quick, let me run down the recap of the things we've been up to with y'all for the last about month and a half, 2 months or so. Miles, Jordan, and myself all went down for Full Sail Hall of Fame 10, which if you don't know is a super cool event that Full Sail holds to kind of honor their alumni and bring all the staff together, and it's just a really cool adventure. There's a video about that. You can go check it out. It's, I think, on YouTube and on the Rooster Teeth website. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Full Sail came to RTX, which was a few weeks back, which was a lot of fun. I got a chance to hang out with them while they did a lot of their introduction to animation, kind of like explanations and pipeline, education type events, which is really neat. And then we also premiered at RTX an RTAA, RT Animated Adventure, starring Gus, Barbara, and I think Gavin's hair made his appearance in there somewhere.
Good.
Where Gus talks about the entire animation pipeline that we're basically covering with all of the live streams we're doing with Full Sail right now. You can find that both on YouTube and the RT website as of this week. It's been a lot of fun to go back and watch that. It's pretty. Gus is so funny. He's a funny guy. So with that all said, I feel like it's time to jump into the old Q&A, where I get to ask y'all some questions and hopefully we can enlighten some people.
Bring it on.
Ready for this?
I'm ready. Practiced.
Are you sure?
No.
Starting with Cole, because I feel like you have a way of doing a Cole Explains.
Oh, no.
Could the three of y'all give me an explanation of what y'all do for shows like Ruby or Genlock?
Yeah, so I am part of the editorial pipeline, which kind of is similar with audio, it's the bookend of production. General responsibilities include marrying VO recording and storyboards and radio plays to make animatics, to which then kind of shape how the show is going to be produced in the future down the pipeline. And then towards the end, we take all the stuff that, once it looks beautiful and it's not just stick figures on the page, we take it together and put it on top of everything and prepare it for web release. So generally,
yeah, that's a good coverage of it. How about y'all with the Viz Post side of things?
Awesome. So viz post covers VFX and all different simulations, which includes crowds for Ruby this year. And then the lighting and rendering of all of that. And then it goes over to compositing, which is Amanda, so I'll let you take it.
And the compositors take all of the assets rendered out by VFX and lighting, and we collage them together and add some magic on and do a little bit of color work, and then we pass it to Cole.
Wow. It's funny. Every time things come back from VizPost, it's always like 1,000 times
Like
way cooler
completely
looking.
different show.
Yeah.
A completely different show from what you sent off like in animation and final layout to what y'all do.
Yeah.
Well, everybody says that they
Yeah.
can't wait for VizPost, but I can't wait for audio because that's
Yeah.
once that
Same.
is the last
No, like
bit.
legit.
Of,
It's 50% of the audiovisual experience.
exactly.
Thank you. Wow,
Literally.
I'm blushing.
Yeah, literally.
This isn't about me. Don't make this about me. How about over here at Full Sail? Dwayne and Joe, what are some of the things you are teaching these students there to kind of prepare them to get into this part of the old pipeline?
Well, I start most of my classes. We start off teaching the students about the Nuke software, basically. Then we move into basic compositing. Then we talk about like match moving, some of the things that you can do at compositing, match moving, roto, clean plating, the 3D system, projection mapping, all that good stuff. So that's how we kind of get them started. And then they move over into the advanced compositing class. So.
Yeah, in the advanced compositing class, we get more into like being able to troubleshoot and fix problems, not just rely on tutorials and things like that. And also in the portfolios, they get to actually generate their own assets. So they will be a lot of what we do is on live action, so CG and live action combined. So they'll pick footage, track their shots. We use various software packages for that, and color correcting and integrating things together to make a seamless shot.
I tend to do this and I forget to mention it beforehand, but I like to hit people with random questions here. With the talking about live action CG, how does that really, like, are there overlaps or does it differentiate from kind of doing it for 3D animation?
Are you?
Whoever wants to answer. This is open.
I think there are a lot. So I came originally from live action. And I think there are a lot of overlaps. One of the biggest differences, though, is that when you're working in live action, you can't really go back and fix the assets. You get what you get, and then you need to like fix things and kind of you have to create something from scratch if you need it. But with 3D animation, you are working with an entire pipeline usually. So you have access to lots of locators for the set, and you have a pipeline you can go back to and fix an asset if you need to. So there's more control. Live action is a lot more about, and I think this is the same for editing too. In live action editing, you get what you get, and then you sculpt out of it. And in animation, you build it up.
Yeah, that's actually we were talking earlier this week on the RT podcast. Whenever I was on, they were talking about editing for live action is very subtractive.
Yes.
You have everything, and then you're like, okay, what can I take from this to make the show, the movie, the short, whatever. Animation is very additive. You have nothing to begin with, and then you are deciding sometimes exactly the limit of what you can make because every shot can be expensive.
Oh yeah.
So it's very you want to keep that in mind of oh, okay, we don't want to have 12 extra frames because how much do those frames cost once they hit the render farm? And so it's I think edit is a little more different than live action. Edit and animation is pretty different.
Yeah.
But it's
Some
you
overlap,
can take the skills and move back and forth
Absolutely,
between the two worlds pretty easily, but it's a different kind of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that kind of sound about right on your end as well?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely. The underlying skills are still the same. You're still layering, you're still dealing with color channels and things like that. But from the back end, definitely it is different. You get what you get, and they learn that a lot when they start picking their clips and start working on them. They're like, I'm like, you picked it, it's yours now. You can do it then.
What kind of programs are y'all learning or teaching the students over there to work in, to kind of enable them to do some of this work?
We start off in Nuke and we roll into Synthesize for most of the programs that we use, but I also teach them a little bit of Photoshop because I come from a fine arts and digital traditional background. And I like to kind of show them how to do some compositing in Photoshop as well, and then move into the Nuke software to get into the more heavily digital stuff. So
Yeah, and the students they come here, have full access to the Creative Cloud, the full suite. So you have After Effects, Premiere. We use Premiere for creating reels. I show them some After Effects stuff because it comes with Mocha, so you can go in and do some Mocha planar tracking and things like that. Yeah, RenderMan to render CG, Maya is our 3D package. So
I think I understood maybe 3 of those programs. Does any of that sound familiar to y'all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We definitely use Maya. We also use 3ds Max for our pencil shading that we do for the characters. That gives us the cell shading look with the outlines. And then we also use Substance for look development for textures.
And for compositing, up until the current season of Ruby we're working on, we composited in After Effects, and we're moving into Nuke now. But currently After Effects is primarily for generating 2D effects for us, and we composite in Nuke.
Oh, Ryan's going to be so mad. And Houdini. We use Houdini for VFX. Sorry, Ryan.
Ryan is our VFX lead.
Yes.
And then editorial.
Editorial, we're all Creative Cloud.
All creative.
So yeah, Adobe Media Encoder. I would say probably the only other thing that we use is Shotgun pipeline tracking.
Yeah,
Pretty
that's
heavily in Edit now.
same with us. I mean,
Yep.
we maybe not as much as a lot of the other parts of the pipeline, but I think Shotgun has been great for helping kind of get everybody talking to each other, handing off,
100%.
Department to department or what have you.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. I mean, it sounds like there's a little bit of overlap there then at least.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what are some of the things y'all are doing like to try and overcome rather creative roadblocks, things that you're hitting with some of the shows that we're working on, specifically for like maybe lighting and comp?
Yeah.
We had an example.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So one of the toughest scenes that we could think of for Genlock was actually for the Ether. It is, if you haven't seen it, you should go watch the show. So then you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's essentially the digital world, and it was designed to be completely different than the real world. So we had to take the scene and essentially do everything completely different than we did for the rest of the show. So it had a lot of different effects. We had a lot of great assets that are just floating around. Shout out to Srivas. He did an amazing job on those. And Leandra set up the set and look dev, and it came out great. And then all of our fantastic lighters lit those shots, and it just came out amazing.
And for context, the look of the Ether is very like Lisa Frank folder. It's like
Oh my
it's neon. A lot of the assets that Ariel mentioned that are floating around are there's purple whales and crystals once you guys, are you done talking about the like actual look dev? So once those assets came to comp, we wanted the comp look to also look very different and heightened and stylized from the rest of the comps we were doing. So our template designer, Christina Avagliano, went in and she developed a look with the help of our art director and with the input of the director. And it is... there's a lot of glow. There's a lot of atmospheric elements. There's like a little bit of a pink haze on everything. And there were tons of lens flares. We just put like massive rainbow flares every direction you turned.
Double
and
rainbows,
oh
triple
yeah.
rainbows.
Yes.
way.
And because the characters in the Ether are their own digital avatars, they have unique outfits. And there's a character named Val, and they have a galaxy suit.
Yeah. That was really
And
cool.
and Christina, with the help of another one of our compositors, Autumn Elizondo, developed a look for this galaxy that moves inside of the suit. So there are all these little kind of like magic touches that you only see for a minute, but took a lot of development.
Yeah, it's neat.
So it was like a full team collaboration to make this space really magical.
Yeah, it feels to me like the ether itself is almost like you take everything and you make it real, and then you need to turn it up by 1,000.
Oh, yes.
And all those little things that you just mentioned, all those little subtle nuances are what kind of took it that far. The galaxy suit is definitely one of my favorite parts of that whole thing.
I love that
Oh, yeah.
galaxy
It's
suit.
so-
We actually saw a
so cool.
cosplayer at RTX this year. Or no, maybe it was just was it a picture? I saw a cosplayer wearing a Val galaxy suit
That's
that lit
amazing.
up.
I want
Is
that.
it moving?
I mean, I think because
I
they
want
were
that.
moving, yes,
Yeah.
it was pretty remarkable. It was like a sheer fabric with lights inside.
That's so smart.
So,
That's awesome.
so with editorial, I know it's a bit of a different process, but like, what are some of the ways you overcome creative issues with, say, timing of scenes or shots, or just even get that granular?
We tend to not get that granular because kind of the approach we take a lot of the time is the episode as a whole. I would say where most, in animation at least, the creative edit time is spent in radio play and animatics. So a lot of it is, I think probably the most challenging thing creatively is learning directors, because
Yes.
editorial is you're almost like a sociopath. You're having to study how people talk, because you're like, what's the spacing between how people talk? What's the spacing between how people walk? People walk in 6 frames. You have to remember, people walk in 6 frames. It's like, no one should have to
I'm gonna count the frames. in
analyze
here.
people walking that hard. But then it also translates into having to analyze the director.
Yeah.
Does your director like to have all of their lines on top of each other first? Then you start putting space between things. Does your director like space between how you're talking? So I think like year to year, like day to day, the most challenging thing that we face and edit is stepping in with a new director
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what they want from a scene, and then taking that, and like, it's the first few times it's fine, but then like third or fourth time you should start trying to get, oh, how do they think?
Yeah.
Cause it's also in how they speak. Like, we'll get a lot of times, oh yeah, I want to add a beat and a half here. And it's like, that's not a real unit of measurement. I don't know. That's not a real quantifiable thing. So it's figuring out what they mean when they say a beat and a half, or what they
Yeah.
mean when they say a zoopty zoop here. Something-
Zoop. Yeah,
yeah.
I've heard that one.
Yeah,
I've
audio.
heard
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of overlap, I think, between editorial and audio
A
in that
lot,
department.
yeah.
Yeah. What about, so over at Full Sail, like, what are some of the things you are teaching the students to kind of overcome or come up with creative solutions for some of these things that they're working on?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely in the portfolio section, we have to deal with like what you mentioned, the what's the director want. Yes, it's their demo reel. They get to kind of pick, and we give them some freedom to be creative. But then at the end of the day, we're the director. So you have a certain time limit you have to stay within to get your project done. You have to basically manage your time. They have to learn that. And that's something we have to kind of reiterate with them, is like, manage your time. Don't save everything to the end. Don't be starting your renders 3 days before it's due. That takes a long time. So time management is probably the biggest thing that we teach them. Everything else is like, stay within your frame counts.
Observe.
Yeah, definitely.
Observe
Yes,
everything.
observe.
So
Be observant of everything. I tell my students that I walk around, like, I'm looking in this room right now. I'm like, how would I do the material for these mic stands? How would I do the material for this anisotropic metal pole that's running up the handrail? I'm always doing that. And they'll find that they do that a lot. If they have to make lots of materials, they have to do lots of comps, they're always looking at it like, what could I do to the scene as I'm walking through it? So be observant. That's huge.
Yeah, that's intense. I think for me, like when I went to Full Sail, immediately after I left, I'd started to be very cognizant of the things that I was hearing. And hearing is one thing, but I think having to observe literally everything in a room would probably drive me insane. That's incredible that you're able to actually pull that off. That's like looking at things and maybe breaking down what the skeletal structure of something like this is. It seems like a lot of thought has to go into it, especially because of all the moving parts, right?
right.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Well, that really, like, I think that sums up a lot of the questions that I had for y'all. I feel like there might be a student or two out there with a question. Yeah, let's switch over to the old Q&A. I'm kind of excited. I feel like I learned some new stuff today.
Yeah, What are the most important things you should show in your portfolio for post-production?
Okay.
When you say post-production, do you mean specifically like visual CG post-production, or are you talking about editorial?
Like a compositing reel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so all right. So for a compositing reel, variety is really important, especially if the job you're looking for is like a generalist kind of role. It is really important that someone who is hiring can tell that you know how to rotoscope, that you know how to motion track things, that you have a good eye for color. I think having a huge variety, and this might mean making a lot of things on your own, that just to like showcase variety, is important. I think also putting your best stuff in and taking out things that are just kind of there as filler is important. It's always better to have a short, high impact reel than it is to have a longer reel that is full of things that you might not be super proud of. Because when you're hiring, you look at hundreds of reels. And if you, in the first 30 seconds, and I know this sounds harsh, in the first 30 seconds, if it doesn't catch you, you have to move on to the next reel. So impress immediately with your reel. Show your best stuff right up front.
It's super important too, because I mean, I can speak to this as well. Like the first 30 seconds might be the only amount of time I have in my day to watch this one reel. I've got to do something else.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like there's some overlap as well with kind of how audio would look at reels and such. Make your best stuff, put it at the front, maybe even bookend it, keep it nice and short, concise. What about the idea of keeping it specific to the role, like, or the company you're applying to?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Variety is good if you're going for a generalist role. If you're going for a really specific, specialized job, it's good to edit something just for that job. I probably have like 10 different versions of my reel that go for, that highlight different things. If I'm looking for a gig in motion design, I use a really different reel than if I'm looking for a gig in color correction. So having a lot of different reels is important, and it's you're thinking about your audience specifically.
For sure. What would you say is a good length for a compositing reel?
Ooh. Well, first 30 seconds are the most important. I'm probably not going to watch more than 1 minute at regular speed. I might scrub through the whole thing really quickly to see what's happening after a minute. But if you ever do anything more than 3.5 minutes, I'm going to start like not paying attention. Yeah.
Cool.
Recommend them adding like a breakdown.
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
composite
I think having a few breakdowns with finished shots is important. It's also really important to list somewhere, either in your description or at the bottom of frame, what specifically you did on that shot. Because if I see a beautiful shot and I don't know what you did on it, I don't know that maybe you were responsible for the texturing, or you were the animator, or you rotoscoped this specific element, I'm not going to really know how your skill set matches up with this particular job. So definitely include information about that. And breakdowns are great.
Cool.
Excellent.
Good question.
Hi. Hi. I had a question. What skills do I need to work on to get, if I want to get into post-production?
It's a good, pretty broad question.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I can tell you what helped me get my first job. So it's definitely going to be a personal experience, but coding. That knowing some Python, if you're working in Maya or a bunch of other software uses it as well. Being able to write tools is extremely helpful. Definitely depends on the size of the studio you're going in. The smaller the studio, the more that is appreciated, because they might not have a designated TD for each department. But knowing skills where you can write your own tools is extremely helpful on a reel or resume. You can't really put that on a reel.
I mean, you could just Just script out the
Yeah,
entire
the
real
code is
resume.
the best part.
Just a picture of yourself coding really intensely.
Yeah, I think that's a really great, like, I know Brandon Bruce said something similar, I believe, when he was talking about, maybe it was someone in animation. Either way, someone previous in an earlier live stream had mentioned learning just a little bit of programming, how much it helped them.
Yeah.
Just because of all the tools that we use and just kind of making things work together.
Yeah, it's helpful in any department.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just might be different code.
Yeah. Cool. Next question. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. What are things I can do after graduation to help get a job in compositing or anything in post-production?
I'll jump on this one. One of the things I always tell my guys is don't stop working once you graduate. Like, keep working on your stuff. I see too many people that once they've graduated, they just kind of stop and they keep sending their reel and they keep sending their reel. And we ask them, they don't get any responses. I'm like, have you continued to work? Keep practicing, because this industry changes fast. Houdini, I mean, how many versions they go through a year, and interfaces? You have to relearn things all the time. So keep up to date on what's changing. And I tell them iteration. You've done a project, scrap it, start over, do it again, do it all over again. See how much faster you get. The faster you get, the easier it is to work on new stuff, because now you've got a skill set that you're building. Keep exercising your skill set for sure.
All right, then. Thank you.
All right.
And while to add to that, while you are making your own things, keep in touch with your network of student collaborators.
Oh, yeah.
And you can make much more impressive things if you have a friend who's a modeler and a friend who's an animator and a friend who's an editor and a friend who does this. You can make your own tiny projects. You don't have to have had jobs to have impressive things in your reel.
As well as there's resources and stuff online now where it's somebody somewhere wants to make an animated short, somebody wants to make a music video, somebody wants to make something. I mean, I know my 13-year-old little sister found some way that she could make a multi-animator project.
That's great.
And so there's websites and stuff out there that if you're having tough time finding something immediately, the internet is your best friend.
Yeah, that applies. I think, again, one of those things that just kind of applies to all the different disciplines.
Yeah.
But I do think I agree. Collaborating with your fellow classmates is a big deal. I can't stress that enough. How many people I've met at Full Sail when I was there, and how many of them I still talk to, and how many of them have helped me, find a gig, or meet other people who can help, find me work. It's been massively beneficial.
So many jobs come from that original student cohort.
Yeah. Be nice, work hard.
Mm-hmm.
Also say, just don't be afraid to keep putting your stuff out there. Post your stuff to the forums. Have people critique your stuff. Get feedback. Everybody's on those forums. The professionals aren't hiding somewhere. They're all kind of cruising the forums and looking at stuff. They like looking at cool stuff. So yeah, keep it out there.
You can find a friend who will tell you no and who will give you good criticism.
Yes.
That is invaluable.
Yes.
Yeah,
Agree.
it's definitely important. I think to share, like you said. I love that. I do go through the forums and I check out other sound design, and it's what helps inform a lot of the things that I look at what people are using for tools or libraries these days. It's been super useful, and it's fun to just meet other sound designers. I feel like that might apply to all the different disciplines as well. Cool. Next question.
Hi. As a junior artist in post production, what can I expect to be doing in my first days on the job?
Realistically, on your first day on your job, you're going to be setting up your computer and getting your account sorted and orientation and
Hey.
meeting your desk neighbors and figuring out where the bathroom is. But in a more in a deeper sense, you're going to be learning what the pipeline is at your new studio. Yeah. Every studio has its own set of practices. Every studio has peculiarities in the way they run their pipeline. So you're going to be absorbing a lot of information.
I know here a lot of reading SOPs.
Yes.
Just learning what the standard is for, not only your department, but the departments that are connected to yours. So that way you can know why is this taking long? Okay, I'm sending it off, but I'm not getting a response. Well, it's because other people are doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So reading SOPs and learning
Yeah.
pipeline.
So much documentation that we keep for everything that I'm sure it would take 2 weeks, honestly, for someone to read through all the Viz posts documentation if they did it.
Also, when you're on a new job, ask questions.
Oh, big time.
Absolutely.
I think my first big gigs, I was so nervous about seeming like I knew what I was doing that I never asked people like if I was doing what I should be doing. Take up space, ask questions, make yourself like a part of the conversations that are happening in your workspace.
Yeah, everything. There are no bad questions when you first start. It's better to ask than a week later realize you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, no assumptions.
Yeah, so it's always good to ask a question.
Yeah, I tell my students that all the time, but they still don't ask questions. So
It's important.
hopefully I can figure out a way to problem solve that. So
Yeah, they find
Yeah.
they when they get to me because I just let them.
Oh, you can also.
Wow.
I feel like a lot of people if they can't think of a question right then and there or what have you, it's always good to just write it down. And if you see that person next time, you ask them or you send them an email. A lot of people are open to going back and helping. I feel like everyone in this industry is just trying to help one another.
Coworkers would rather answer a question first than go back and fix something later.
Big time.
100%.
Cool. I think we have time for one more question.
Any more?
I don't think we have anybody left.
Oh.
We answered them all.
We just answered all the questions, I guess.
Excellent.
Forever. All right.
I think we have one.
We have
Yeah.
one.
All right.
Here he comes.
We got one. We got one coming. Here he comes.
See, they took our advice. They're
Hi.
asking questions.
Excellent.
As I'm someone who likes to create stories and everything, but I don't know that much yet about animation sometimes and stuff. So my question is about how can I, as someone who's not in animation, how can I direct and work with people from animation? Any tips regarding this for a non-animator to work with people from animation for direct and stuff, including voice acting also, I guess?
Able to help out with this one a little bit. I think the first thing you need to do is just learn as much as you can about those disciplines. You don't have to learn like all this, like the granularities or like all the nuances of each role. For instance, if you want to learn about voice acting, you don't have to learn about every microphone and now recordings are done to a T. It's just the idea of learning how to actually interface with people. If you're trying to get a performance out of someone, it's learning what things they might have as their strengths and as their weaknesses, and not trying to force a performance out of someone who they're just not right there, they're not getting it. And then I think that applies to every different part of the pipeline, right? Every creator is kind of their own special like little unit, in that you have to learn how to talk to them and sort of understand what they're trying to say.
I also don't think there's a single director out there who knows everything about
Definitely
every
not.
stage of the pipeline. So
That's why we have directors per department.
If anybody
Yeah.
says they know everything, they don't.
They
You should find a different director.
Yeah.
As far as directors go, like to me, a key, or like a hallmark of a good director is having people who they can trust, who specialize in things. So like a sound person,
Yes.
An audio director, a
Audio,
visual
yeah,
post
visual-
supervisor,
yeah,
that kind of
So,
thing.
just talking with people and saying like, okay, I don't understand this. Help me understand this, and then always asking them questions whenever you like are running into problems.
Yeah, a good director will ask questions to the heads of the other departments because they know that is their specialty.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for the question. And I think that about wraps it up for us. I'd like to take this moment to thank, Joe and Dwayne and all of Full Sail University for being a part of all
Thank
the
you.
live streams, for
Thanks for
making this
having
happen.
us.
This has been a lot of fun for me, especially as an alum. It's been kind of really awesome to just kind of reconnect with everybody there. And then, of course, if you missed the earlier live streams, once again, you can check out the description below to see the links to the previous streams. A lot of cool stuff in there. You can learn from basically every group of the pipeline that we have here. And of course, if you want to learn more, you can go check out the fullsail.edu/Rooster Teeth website. to check out what the school offers, and maybe jump into this part of the career, or this part of the industry rather. So thank you so much, everybody, and y'all take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.